Hello, everyone. I've been brainstorming on poverty today and how it affects people who are poor, who are in the grasp of this kind of pain that is a lack of resource, of understanding, and basic ability to affect their situations in life. And I've been brainstorming on my new bulletin board here, well, my dry erase board. And I just want to share a few thoughts. None of this is especially new uh, compared to other ideas, but I do want to kind of brainstorm and talk about some of the things that are on this board, just to give a basic idea of the ideas I've been connecting today. Now, I've put the rich on the top, and and I've also made a few sections here. Well, more than a few, and based on what people who are poor feel, uh, I wrote down helpless, hunger, fear, sickness, and alone, which means loneliness. And I've also compared it to the rich and how they feel, how they experience these things. And helplessness, not, is what I wrote. Hunger, none, usually, is what I wrote. And fear of losing what they have is their fear, their main fear. On average, this isn't going to be the same for every person, but on average, this is what I believe the rich feel, and we'll get to the impoverished people in just a second. And sickness, most sickness for people who are wealthy or rich is not physical but ideological. Of course, there's things we haven't cured yet, so no amount of money can really resolve those sicknesses. But as far as the vast majority of sickness that people with a lot of money suffer from, they're usually ideological. The egotism and selfishness for one's own prosperity and lack of interest in other people's prosperity. Just on average, I wouldn't say that every rich person is like this. There's certainly a lot of rich people who are great people, who actually want to give back, and who made their fortune scraping tooth and nail to get there. I'm not talking about them. I'm just talking about the average rich person who was either born into it, born with money, or came into money in a way that didn't require a lot of work and doesn't require a lot of work to maintain it. But then I'll go ahead and read the rich note for loneliness, alone. And I wrote, the more you have, the more you are alone. Now, the reason for this, you might ask, why and how does it make sense that the more you have, the more you're alone? The thing is, the more you have, the more material you have, the more wealth you have, uh, the more ability you have to affect your situation in a materialistic way, the more you are reliant upon it. It makes you encased in a golden body cast, that divides you and your experiences from the experiences of others, because you're purely concerned with what is within that body cast of gold. You're purely concerned with who you are as an individual, and judge it by what you have and what you are worth, as in the realm of dollars or whatever kind of currency we're talking about, and that divides you from other people. Now, that's not the only thing that makes you alone. There's there's many other sicknesses and phases of depression and schizophrenia and psychosis that can make you feel lonely, even if you have a lot of money. But the wealthy mindset, the rich mindset, the culture of it makes you isolated, because there is a shield between you and others, composed of what you're worth, what you're wearing, your money, all these materialistic things, and that divides you as a person from those around you. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and move to people who are actually suffering in poverty. And I'm not going to read all my notes, but I'm going to read some of them. And right here, under helpless, I said how to help them. And all these notes for impoverished people are how to help people who are poor. These are ideas and this is basically brainstorming about how to help people who are poor. And a lot of it's not something that I can do personally, but I wanted to learn so that maybe I can try and help people in the future. And I'm not trying to give myself a pat on the back, but I want to understand these ideas. This is why I got this this dry erase board in the first place, is to try and figure out how I can understand reality and help other people. So we're going to go ahead and start with helplessness. One way we can help people who are suffering in poverty in their helplessness is don't let opportunistic gangs or corporations be the only source of help. And if they must be, spread info about options and groups which provide help, in parentheses. And basically I'm saying that don't let groups who would take advantage of somebody who needs a lot in life make them slaves in one way or another, financially, through fear, through violence. Don't let those groups make people who are poor slaves in that way. And of course, freedom has to come with literacy and books. So I wrote free books of all kinds distributed to all. So knowledge is the backbone of the human experience. One must learn in order to enhance the experience. So books, which contain knowledge of all different sorts, must be distributed freely and constantly, and in a way that evenly distributes it in a community, so that people can learn. People can learn how to get out of their situation, people can learn how to be happy with themselves, and people can learn to become the kind of person they truly want to be. Okay, now we're going to go on to hunger. Of course, the hunger ones are more, cut and dry, obvious. But, okay, the first hunger one is donations of money and food, of course. Educate on how to grow your own food and things like that where it's possible. It might not be possible in every place where poor people exist, of course, but that's another option. Not buying beef, so less is needed, and the feed we make for them can be made into a sustainable food source. Now, this is kind of complicated, but it's more complicated than the other points, but we could solve world hunger if we simply use the feed we make for cattle, which we forcibly raise the population of cattle. If we use the feed that we make for them after this forced breeding, we could actually solve world hunger. There wouldn't be any more hunger. It takes a lot of resources to produce 1 pound of beef in an animal. It takes gallons and gallons and gallons of water. It takes gallons and gallons of feed. And it takes so much effort that it would actually solve world hunger itself if we stopped forcibly breeding cattle and thus stopped making feed for them. I mean, even if we had to have some cattle, or even if the market demanded at least some cattle, we could reduce the number by not forcibly breeding them, and then use the resources and the food itself that we make, that we use to make feed, and use that instead to make food for us. That would solve world hunger. That's just a fact. And that's something that is very important to poor people. That would help them so much, but it's not something that the average person knows, whether they be poor or rich or whatever. And a lot of people don't accept it because they love meat so much. I'm a vegetarian, so I'm kind of biased, but this fact isn't something that I made up. It's something that you can look up. We put a lot of resources into producing meat, a substance and a food that we don't need. We simply don't need. You can look up the research on being a vegetarian, but I've been vegetarian for over 3 years. And I haven't eaten any gelatin or meat, and I feel great, and I still lift weights, and it's a very sustainable and wonderful life. So I would highly recommend this small idea of becoming a vegetarian, even if it's a slow process, to give it a shot. Just give it a shot and see how you feel. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and move on. I've spent too much time on that. Fear. The fear that poor people have because of their situation, because of their circumstances. We can spread philosophical and religious hope. Now, it's important to give access to all kinds of books of philosophy and religion so that people can choose. Even if they're in bad situations, they should still have the right to choose what they believe. Whether it's philosophical or whether it's religious, they should still have the options that everyone else has. And even if they choose no religion and if they choose no particular philosophy, at least these ideas can be available to them to where they can help themselves in these ways if they wish. Now, the next one I wrote for fear is encourage acceptance of other groups to make communities bigger. Now, communities being bigger is important, not because it's necessarily adding people to a community, but it's uniting people who are already around each other in the ways which would cause a peace and a cooperation that would benefit every community. It's not healthy for people in the same community that are black, Hispanic, white, to be separate, because together they can actually produce a far better community and understanding of each other and opportunities for their children if they simply work together more often. And you know, this is a point in history in the United States when we work together very well. Different races, race doesn't really exist, but different ethnicities and different skin colors, we all work together very well, but there's still improvements to be made. And the fear that impoverished people experience would decrease if we simply encouraged our children and our friends and family to mix with everyone else. To mix not necessarily in just marrying or something like that. That's a little too far to kind of enforce or encourage, but basically just act like each other are human beings and see where it goes from there. Now, another thing that I wrote on fear is free self-defense classes, because a lot of people are afraid in impoverished neighborhoods of being attacked. Free self-defense classes by somebody who's willing to do it would make people feel more confident to get out of the house and not be afraid constantly when they're out. And let's see, the last thing I have for fear is basically have an armored neighborhood watch. Now, what I mean by armored and not armed is that an armored neighborhood watch means that they have the proper physical armor, like defenses on their body, like that are hard to get through knives or through pistols, bullets, of course, and to have them with that armor and to have them not armed would mean that they would try to take people down who are causing trouble without killing them. And that's very important. That's very important for compassion, for the stability of the community, and for the fact of revenge. People are more likely to try to take revenge on another neighborhood if you killed their child, or their brother, or their sister, or their father, or their mother, anything like that. So we have to train neighborhood watch people to have basic self-defense knowledge and provide armor, and that exists today, to where they wouldn't have to defend themselves with arms, pistols, guns, things like that. They could simply take opponents down through self-defense methods, martial arts methods, because of their armor. Now, we'll go ahead and move on to sickness. Let's see what we got here. This one's very hard. For sickness, people who are impoverished and the sicknesses they experience decrease their dependence on corporate provided medication. Because there's always a profit motive, the medications for saving people's lives, whatever country they're in, it's usually it's very high. The prices are very high because these people need the medication, and corporations have their bottom line to consider. So their profits to consider. So they charge the charity organizations that provide the medicine a lot of money because they know that the people that need it are in the countries and they have no other options. In the countries that are most poor and have no other options. Now we'll move to education on risk management. I don't know why I wrote a P there, but information on risk management. Basic hygiene methods for, this one's easy, basic hygiene methods for preventing sickness: washing hands, bathing, masks around sick people, and vitamin treatments that are cheap, taken every day. These can prevent a lot of sicknesses. And the last one I have on, well, actually I got two more on sickness, but let me take a drink of something real quick. There's two more on sickness, and of course, we all know of those medical trucks that go around neighborhoods that are basically charity charity trucks. People donate to them, and they provide medical attention. They provide medical attention in bad neighborhoods to people who need it, and they provide clean needles. They provide condoms, things that would aid in combating sickness and STDs and basically death, because a lot of the drug paraphernalia that people use is not clean and can cause death. And even going as far as shooting up the person with the drug that they bought, not at the truck, of course, so that the person doesn't inject oxygen into their veins or inject them the wrong way so it kills them. I'm highly in favor of this. It's a topic that's very hard to talk about, because because a lot of people will be like, you're gonna inject the drugs for them, or you're gonna give them clean needles that they're gonna use. Why would you do that? That means that they're going to use a drug. But the thing is, they're going to use a drug anyway. And if you provide them with clean things and information on how to get out of a habit, and how to keep yourself clean so that you don't die at the very least, you're going to save lives. And everybody's life, even an addict, even an addict is valuable. Human life is the most valuable resource on this planet, because sentient experience, sentient understanding of our reality and our connection between each other is so much higher than all the other species on this planet. And maybe even if there's other species in other galaxies, or this galaxy, maybe we might be one of the highest life forms, or at least one of the sentient life forms in this galaxy or the universe. But even if we're not, our experiences as sentient beings are very valuable, and we shouldn't undercut that. We should never undercut that. Every single person is valuable. Now, going to go ahead and move to loneliness. Those in the gutter are in pain, but have many brothers and sisters in pain. I wrote this because everyone who is poor is more likely to have somebody they can connect with, because there's usually people who are poor are very tightly compacted in communities because they don't have a lot of room, they can't afford it. So you have a lot of brothers and sisters, a lot of people who are like you and are experiencing the same problems. So everyone should communicate in situations like that and try to support each other, because there's plenty of people. Community counselors that have a gift for helping people. Community counselors don't have to be somebody with a degree, but if they're going to do it for money, they should have a degree. But if they're not, if they're just going to try and help people, it can be somebody who's in the community that everyone trusts, that everyone feels a connection to, and knows that that person has a gift for solving problems. And those people should be employed. If not for money, for at least, helping the community, like if they're going to do it for free, voluntarily. We shouldn't let anybody in the community be left out, no matter how weird they are, I guess you could say. Classes on bullying, emotional support. We have to make sure that bullying is checked and emotional support in the community is strong, so that people do know, you do this and you don't do that. Just basic rules of emotional stability among people. That can have a big effect on children and even adults, to not basically pick on each other, not to hurt each other in the ways that people don't think about. Of course, funds raised for medication for those without everyone in the community can donate. And the last thing I want to talk about is this star right here. And this is a division. I'm using basically the shape of the human body to explain what an individual's responsibility is. And the top one is intellectual dedication. You have to be intellectually dedicated to improving yourself and improving your community if you're going to be a part of a community. And then my right, not the star's right, my right, using knowledge to protect others. The individual responsibility is to use the knowledge or their self-defense skills to try and help people in their community, so that we can all move forward together, basically. And my left, using strength to dominate dominators. Sometimes we do have to use strength, and that's the only thing that'll work. So we use that to dominate those who are dominating others, just so that they'll stop. That doesn't mean necessarily killing them, but it does mean putting them in their place. It might not even be turning them over to the police, but we have to make them understand that they can't try and hurt people that are weaker than them. And my right, on the right leg of the star, foundation of principles. And I put this one because we have to be founded in the principles that we believe in most. We have to make them a part of us. And everyone has something they believe in, and that should be in the core of who they are, their foundation. Okay, and I'm going to move to the left leg of the star, my left, foundation of individuality. We all have aspects of ourselves that are individual, that we grow from, and a lot of it's selfish, but we can grow as a person and then help others based on that growth. Now, this is basically the brainstorming that I did tonight. I really appreciate you watching. If you have any thoughts or comments, or you want to ask about any of this, feel free to give me a comment down there. And if you found this interesting, please give me a thumbs up. But I'm going to go ahead and end it here. Thank you very much for watching. You're why I do this. And y'all have a great day.